Hello everybody, welcome to the Mindcrack server. Things have advanced quickly. We've made a lot of items. I tend to do it on camera, but you know, was just kind of getting into the zone. So what did we do? Well, made all these rails, redstone, torch, comparator, note block, those minecart items, hopper. It's because I went strip mining and got more redstone and iron that I did off camera. And because of that, it's going to be a smaller episode, but I've given some long episodes. I think that's fair. So there's a minecart chest. I found I did have diorite, so I did the diorite, stone brick wall, and I made all the different types of rail, as you can see here. So activator rail, power rail, detector rail, note block. So all that should get you up to speed on where we are now. And this episode, I am going to talk about the Doctor Who episode, Wild Blue Yonder, the middle episode of this kind of 60th anniversary miniseries with Mr. David Tennant. All right, Observer off the board. Yeah, sorry I didn't listen. I never promised it was going to be exactly every item on camera. I mean, if you really want to see that, I just was recording no audio in case, you know, something happens. So, but who cares? I went strip mining. I made some items. So, Wild Blue Yonder, you know, the Star Beast episode 1, as we discussed, was only fine. It was a little heavy-handed in its metaphors, one could say. What was the thing? Daylight sensor. Okay, I just need wood slabs. Yeah, some heavy-handed metaphors going on in that one. But the good news, ladies and gentlemen, was that Wild Blue Yonder kicked all of the ass. It absolutely slapped. It was so good. So good. It was the best episode since The Doctor Falls in 2017. It was incredible. And they kept this episode secret, and all the better for it, because you had no idea where this episode was going at any point. No clue. Impossible to know. Undeterminable. And I remember they added redstone lamps, dude. Yes, you could not know what was happening. And really, hold on, I'm going to clear my throat here. Okay, we're back. Could not know what was going on. And for, you know, many questions being asked about Russell T. Davies still have it, or, you know, especially, like, what's going to be in these episodes, because you kept them so secret. And he explained, I just kept it secret because, you know, I didn't want people to know what was happening. And he was so correct. Just so correct in that choice. Because no, there were no cameos. No, there was no crazy lore. No. Our conception of the Doctor was forever changed. Or was it? Because character work, ladies and gentlemen. Drink the thick potion. character work is so important. And the Doctor and Donna are trapped at literally the edge of the universe, farther out than they've ever been. The Doctor's been to other universes, so... Never been to the edge of this one, I guess, alright? Exact words. And him and Donna are confronted by, here's the spoilers, these creatures from outside the universe called the Not Things, also played by David Tennant and Catherine Tate, because they were imitating them. And not imitating them, they're speaking back to them, they're trying to copy them, and then we're just asking them probing questions in really unsettling ways, or trying to trick them into thinking that, you know, they were the real person, or so they could just get more answers out of them about what's going on in the universe, what's going on in the ship, all sorts of things like that. Oh, so it was, and through these creatures that were quite scary at times, you had no idea how the story was going to play out, right? I mean, you were on the edge of your seat. Until, of course, we found that the of course, you know, the day was saved, but not really, and I think a way people are going to expect by blowing up the whole damn ship. And it's just those kind of moments that can truly, in my mind, you know, they really elevated. Sorry, the secrecy. Oh, I need to make a fermented spider eye. That's right. Jeez. Okay. Sorry, had to step away there. You missed basically nothing at all. Oh crap, now I should go sleep. Oh, Sakana slept for me. Gonna go get some sugar cane. No, it's just I was talking about, you know, the secrecy of the episode. You had no idea where it was going. Edge of your seat thriller. But also a character study at the same time. That's why Russell T Davies is such a master. You were for tall sugarcane, both of you. Now you must die. So it was just really cool to see the show firing on all cylinders again. It made me happy. The other thing we can discuss is the college football playoff. College football is so stupid. There's like, okay. So you've got these schools. They don't all have the same resources. How do you rank these schools? Well, you split them off into tiers based on like enrollment size, things like that. Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. Okay. Easy. No. Incorrect. Because then at Division 1, there's a lot of schools saying, but we've got, you know, a lot more power than that. I know we're Division 1 in other sports, but, you know, football takes so many resources. I mean, you have these full rosters, right? Oh, geez, that takes a lot of resources. So, okay, we'll split into two subdivisions in Division 1. So you've got FCS and you've got FBS. the reasons they're called that are kind of boring and not really relevant. Okay. So then in the FBS, but schools are also, in conferences. And the reason they're in conferences is because, the country's a big place. And we think it would make sense to play teams close to us geographically. Save some money, not constantly be flying all around the country. So then these different conferences form. 10 of them. Turns out 5 of those conferences are definitely weaker. And the other 5, they're definitely a lot better. The level of competition is a lot stiffer. The money that goes into them is a lot higher. Okay. So now you've got another situation where you already had the split, Division 3, Division 2, then Division 1. Then in Division 1, you have a split in between FBS and FCS. Then, put her die right back. Then, after that, you have to split into the Group of 5 and the Power 5. And the Group of 5 are they're just not as good. Then, well, we'll get to the then. So it used to be, how did you determine in the FBS a national champion? And despite the bad takes of some people saying, this was good, actually, you just, sports writers voted on it. At the end of the season, it would happen. Teams play their regular season. They play a few non-conference games for outside their geographic area. Then they play their conference schedule. Then they maybe play a conference championship game. And then they maybe play what's called a bowl game. Like a postseason game against a really good team from another conference. And then, looking at the team's records, sports writers and the coaches of all the schools got together and they voted on who the national champions were. If you're thinking, hold on, we're playing all these games and the national champions just determined by voting? That's crazy? You're right. You're right. So, in the late 90s, these people said, I got a better way. We'll have a national championship game between the two best teams. A lot of times there were like 2 really good teams. And sometimes the journalists and the coaches would vote for different teams. Personally, I think the journalists carried a little more weight than the coaches, but whatever. Fine. Cool. How would these top spots be determined? Because, all those different polls or people could try and influence it. Well, it'll be determined by a combination of the people voting and computers, newfangled computers. These newfangled computers are here to save the day. Here's what the newfangled computers are going to be able to do. And the system was working okay. There was one season where 3 teams in the Power 5 won every game. There's only 2 slots in the national championship game, so one of them got fucked. Okay. And there's, 5 conferences. Then there's one conference, the SEC, Southeastern Conference, started dominating. Maybe asking yourself, why is this? Because the SEC is in the South. The South, doesn't really have as much professional sports because it has fewer big cities, a lot more decentralized population. So people are really invested in their local college sports. And then a lot of people have gone to these big southern schools and gotten very wealthy, and are called boosters. They spend a lot of money to boost these schools, and their fan bases get really big and passionate because they have no pro team nearby. And a lot of pro teams that were in the South were pretty bad. Also, the South was a hotbed for talent. A lot of people live there. A lot of people love football there, so you had the best football players. It's also, I believe, because it's all warm weather, it's easier to recruit people there, and also produces more talent because you're able to get more time, outside practicing and playing due to the warm weather. Cool. Wonderful. The SEC gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In 2011, 2 teams in the SEC, Louisiana State, LSU, and Alabama, meet up. They're both supposedly incredible teams. And the SEC starts winning like every national championship with some big upsets too that people didn't think would happen, like Florida over Ohio State and stuff. So everybody starts saying they've got the SEC speed that other conferences don't have, and they're just better. They're the best conference. So really, you've got the Power 5, but you really have the Power 4, and then you have the SEC at the top. And then one school in particular, Alabama, starts to even be the best team of the SEC. And the SEC makes the most money, brings in the most TV dollars, the most revenue, because it has the biggest supporters and they win. So 2011, regular season. LSU versus Alabama, game of the century. LSU wins 9-0. Thrilling. Because of that, Alabama doesn't play in the SEC championship game because LSU and Alabama are in the same half of the SEC. So LSU wins their half of the SEC. They win that championship game. Alabama won the rest of their other games. The computer rankings and everything say that Alabama and LSU are the 2 best teams. So despite the fact that they played each other before in the regular season, and Alabama didn't win the SEC, and this is a rematch, which has never happened in college football, we're just taking 2 SEC teams play each other again in the national championship game. The national championship game is hot ass. Alabama wins like 20-0. Great. So instead, let's do something we call the college football playoff. Hold on. The college football playoff. There'll be a playoff of 4 teams. Okay. I'm intrigued. I admit. A committee will select the 4 teams. Why committee? Well, the computers were stupid. We hated the computers. And there's no better way to do it. But at least it's a committee of like athletic directors from, different schools and people like Condoleezza Rice. And here's the thing, important. Every college sport determines who's in its playoffs because of a committee. Every single one. Now, a lot of these sports, if you win your conference, you automatically get in the tournament. Not the case in college football yet. But you automatically get in the tournament. But then there's all the other at-large selections, which are determined entirely by a committee. As well, the seeding, which can be very important. Give people buys, home field advantage is, in non-revenue sports, very important. Also determined by a committee. The College Football Playoff Committee it's not unique. There are committees. There's just too many teams. Too many teams that play too many different types of schedules. Someone's got to sort it out. And it ain't gonna be computers. I'll tell you that much. So this starts in 2014. The number 4 seed, Ohio State, wins the national championship. Sorry, off to a great start. things are going pretty well. But here's the problem. There are 5 Power 5 conferences. And listen, I think the committee had some tough calls some years. But by and large, until this year, I think they got the 4 teams correct. Here comes 2023. There are 3 undefeated teams, and there are 4, really 3. I get, yeah. No, because you had Georgia, Alabama. Yeah, there are 4 one-loss teams. So you have, and also what you don't know is the Power 5 is becoming the Power 2. It's becoming the group of 7, almost, because one of the conferences, the Pac-12, the West Coast Conference, has fallen apart due to schools wanting more money. So all those schools, a lot of them joined the Big Ten, which is now like the biggest rival to the SEC. Okay, so and also some schools from the Big 12 joined the SEC. So it's really just the Big Ten and SEC that matter. Like literally the top 15 teams, the college football playoff this ranking. I think it was something like the top 15. 14 of those teams, in the top 15, next season will be in the Big Ten or the SEC, except for one, which we will get to. And again, already if a group of 5 team went undefeated, they might not make the playoffs if they didn't play as good a strength of schedule. Everybody just accepts that. But there's the Power 5 teams, which supposedly played as good a strength of schedule. Okay? Next. This year, you had, from the Big Ten, Michigan went undefeated, beat one of the one-loss teams, Ohio State. So they're in. Washington, Pac-12, went undefeated, didn't beat one of the one-loss teams. Pac-12, the conference is folding. Washington joined the Big Ten next year. But they beat Oregon, who was also very good, twice. So they're in. The other undefeated team is Florida State. They've not beaten any of the one-loss teams. They've not beaten a team like Oregon twice. They're in the conference called the ACC, which is kind of like the 3rd best conference. But their quarterback, their key player, broke his leg. And ever since then, they've clearly been struggling. But they've ground out enough wins to win their conference and finish undefeated, even without their quarterback. Then, in the one-loss teams, you have Texas, who won the Big 12 conference. Texas leaving towards the SEC next season, joining the Power 2. Yet another tier. And they only have one loss to Oklahoma. But here's a critical thing. They beat Alabama, the other one-loss team, who beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, giving Georgia their first loss. So you can't put Alabama ahead of Texas because Texas beat Alabama. You can't put Georgia ahead of Alabama because Alabama beat Georgia. So it's got to go Texas, Alabama, Georgia. And it's previously been understood that if you were a Power 5 school and you went undefeated, you would be in the playoff. But this meant a scenario where, despite Texas joining the SEC next year, the 4-team playoff would have been Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas. No SEC team. SEC teams have been in place every year. In fact, some years they've had 2. And each of those times, I think it was the correct decision. Like Alabama and Georgia really are that good. And yes, Florida State, I think, would lose their playoff game if they made it in. But despite that, I think the committee were cowards. They knew that they would face unholy wrath if they left out the SEC, because the SEC makes people money. It is the biggest influence in college sports. They have the most sway and they have the most power. So the committee chickened out. They chickened out. They got cold feet. They left out undefeated Florida State for Texas and Alabama. And really for Alabama, because you had to put Texas ahead of Alabama, because they beat Alabama. I think this is more about the SEC than specifically Alabama. Hold on. Yeah, I think this is more about the SEC than specifically Alabama. But bad look, guys. Bad look. It's like, what's the point of playing the games? And the committee says, we don't think Florida State can win a national championship in their current state with their injury. I agree. I don't think they can either. But you know what? We don't. This should be based off of real-ass results. Real-ass results of games. Not speculation. Even well-informed speculation. I'm sorry. This is why you play the games. Odds are Florida State won't win. But maybe they do. Maybe they do. And, think about all the kids on that football team who ground all year, who did everything, single thing asked of them, who went undefeated at a Power 5 school, who sacrificed their bodies, and they didn't lose a game, and they got told no. No. It wasn't worth it. You did it for nothing. Winning every game isn't good enough if we still don't think you're good enough. And Florida State, that one team, not the SEC or the Big Ten. And I tell you what, they're trying to leave the ACC as quickly as possible because they've never been left behind. And some people are concerned. Next year, thankfully, the playoff expands to 12 teams, which I honestly maybe think is even a little too high, and it should never get any bigger. People are like, well, the committee will still be there. It's true, but here's the thing. The committee's effects can be mitigated. You can mitigate the committee. The more slots for a committee to fill out, the farther down the list the snub is. Like, here's an example. Women's lacrosse last year. University of Denver, women's lacrosse team. Only undefeated team in the nation. And yes, they didn't play quite as hard a schedule as, like, the top 2-3 teams. But they beat one of them. Only undefeated team in America. And this women's lacrosse doesn't have like the P5, G5 thing. The committee said, not good enough. Not good enough. Going undefeated wasn't enough. We are giving you the 5 seed instead of the 4 seed, which means you will have to play a quarterfinal game on the road at North Carolina instead of at home and at Denver. It's almost the exact same thing as the Florida State situation, except Florida State's completely out of the picture because there's only 4 teams invited. Well, there's 20 or whatever in women's lacrosse, so Denver made the tournament. You know what they did? They went into North Carolina, and I think they won 5-4 and held them scoreless like the last 45 minutes of the entire game. Didn't allow a goal in the second half. Beat North Carolina, made the Final Four, told the committee, go fuck yourself. So, sports. Ooh, $7.99 AD. Good jump. See what we got. All right. The Vikings raid the island of Norimotor, attacked the monastery of St. Philibert of Eumagus. Pope Leo III is physically attacked by a band of aristocratic conspirators under the leadership of a public official and nephew of the late Pope Adrian I. After mistreatment and attempted disfigurement by citizens of Rome, Leo flees to the court of Charlemagne to seek protection. He sends him back with Frankish agents and restores him to the papal throne. Based as hell. Alright, thanks for watching.